Welcome back to another episode of the MacRumors Show. Hartley, good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. Have you gone out for a jog today? Because I know you love to do that.
I can't say I have. So I've not been closing my rings.
I was going to say, have you closed your rings?
I haven't even put my Apple Watch on today. That's how bad I've been.
That's not great for today's episode because we're talking all about the Apple Watch. And we have a new Apple Watch lineup. This is the first time in a few years where all three is being updated, correct? At the same time?
Yeah.
So we're getting the full lineup, supposedly, allegedly, in just a couple of weeks. But we're also going to look ahead because we've gotten some really strange rumors, I feel like, recently about next year's set of Apple Watches. So if you're thinking, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to get a new Apple Watch, maybe you might want to wait until next year's Apple Watch because there are some pretty big things on the horizon. But let's talk about some of the more current, up-to-date things. We talked about it last week really quickly at the beginning. And now that it's been out for the last week or so, I just got my watch and my phone updated to now support blood oxygen again because it is back. And we know now how it works. And I went to go try it, and it does not work. So I think mine's... To be fair and to be upfront, I am running watchOS 26 and iOS 26. And so it was updated for that. And then the moment I hit start, it just says instantly that it's done and that my reading is available on the iPhone, even though I did not go through the blood oxygen test. So probably need a restart or something. There's something going on there. But have you had a chance to try this yet?
Well, no, because I still have the original blood oxygen feature. So I don't need to worry about it. I can just go ahead and tap start like I have been able to this entire time and get the reading right there on my wrist.
That's not fair. Actually, it doesn't really make any difference to me on how this works. I mean, is it easier to just tap start, do the whole thing, and then get the reading instantly on your watch? Sure. But now it just, in the US, and for those who can't access it like you can, it now just works in the health app on your iPhone. So you just go and see the results there. And apparently I haven't had a chance to look into this, but apparently yesterday or today, this has sparked a whole new wave of lawsuits from the company that initially, I'll be 100% honest, I have not read into that yet. Can you update us on what now they're suing about? Is it still just not enough for them?
Effectively, yes. So Masimo have now launched another lawsuit now involving U.S. Customs as well for allowing this in the first place. I mean, it's quite a simple but clever solution to get around this problem, because Apple can say, well, it's not calculated on the watch now. No software is running on the watch that is actually determining your blood oxygen level. The sensor is gathering data, sending it to your phone, and then it's processed on your phone. So Masimo's whole technology is about a wrist-based solution. So if it's not processed on your wrist, then Apple thinks that gets around it. And certainly Apple's legal team think that gets around it.
Sure. I mean, even though 99% of it is done on the watch, the key ingredient to it needs to require your phone. So that is completely different than what Masimo has, right? They don't have a phone-related aspect of it. It is done on the wrist wearable itself. So I can see that holding up in court. Also seems kind of cheap, but that's what whoever came up with that solution gets paid the big bucks for. So, I mean, I'm happy from a perspective of hey, that feature's now back in my life, but I don't know. It is not something that I really miss, to be honest with you. I didn't use it all the time. Although when I was in Denver, when the elevation was high and the air was thin, I did want to check my readings and I could not do that. So it's not like it's completely worthless for me. I do use it.
It's not something that you check every day. It's just like taking an ECG. It's probably something that you take a couple of times a year when you're not feeling very well already and you want to check these other things.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this will be the last we've heard of this. I wonder if it will get blocked in court again. This feature will be removed, or Apple eventually comes to some kind of settlement for a more permanent solution.
feel like that's probably the best bet if Apple just wants it all to go away. But I'm guessing Apple's legal team said this should be fine. This should hold up. There's no reason why it can't. So otherwise, they probably wouldn't have gone this far. But what do I know? I'm not a lawyer. Okay, so that is what's currently going on with your Apple Watch now. But looking ahead to, I mean, it's not officially announced yet, but we're all assuming September 9th. Looking ahead to that week when we will get new iPhones and new Apple Watches. We're going to get the Series 11, the Ultra 3, and an SE3. Let's start with the SE3. This is kind of always the one that gets, it's like the little brother that gets put in the corner and nobody really talks to it or acknowledges that it exists anymore. I guess if you shouldn't do that to your brother, that's not very nice. So the SE3, larger displays, potentially Series 7 style design, probably some upgrades on the inside and a new casing. Is that kind of where we're headed?
Pretty much. I think that the biggest upgrade will be the visual change, because there have only been 2 Apple Watch SE models, and they have looked pretty much identical. So Apple took the casing and the display of the Apple Watch Series 4, which is, of course, long since out of production now, and packaged it with a new chip and a low price point. That design is now really quite out of date. So it seems likely that, given that these devices are rumored to get larger displays, that Apple will opt for another old casing and display combination. And this would be the design that persisted from the Series 7 through to the Series 9, when that display size increased again, the casing was changed a little bit. And that is now also out of production. So that would be cheap for Apple to manufacture. So that looks like that will be fairly significant if you're coming from maybe a first generation Apple Watch SE, which, for what it's worth, does not support the latest version of WatchOS. This would be a fairly significant upgrade. The chip as well,
it's
moving up to the S11, which is the same as the rest of the lineup, which is the same as what we've expected from the SE before. And that will be based on the A16, which is the same chip family that we've had for the past 2 generations now, I believe. So the S9, S10, and S11 are effectively all the same chip. They all have the same CPU.
What are we thinking price point wise? Still $299? Is that what it starts at now?
There were some rumors about Apple getting the price down further. And it looked like Apple was trying to get it below $200. But we haven't heard anything about that for a very long time. In fact, we've not really heard anything about this device for a very long time. And one of the biggest questions about it are these rumors about a plastic casing. We heard a series of reports that Apple was trying to engineer a plastic casing for this device to kind of separate it more clearly from the mainline Apple Watch, and also bring the price down, make it a little bit more friendly to an entry-level audience, to be better for kids, and sort of embrace that iPhone 5C aesthetic. But the last we heard about this, it was not actually turning out to be a whole lot cheaper than giving it an aluminium case. And there were other engineering problems. Apple's design team wasn't happy with it. So my expectation now, and this is just pure speculation, is that they will actually not use a plastic casing. They will just stick with aluminium.
I would like to see the plastic case, but if it doesn't make any sense and it's not going to be any cheaper, then I would totally be fine with aluminum, or aluminium, as you would say, because that just makes things obviously a little bit more durable and better materials. And I don't know, I just think there's no reason to change at that point if it's not going to make the cost down. I will say it's selling for $169 right now. Granted, it is, been a bit since it's been updated, and it's been almost it's the end of the life cycle here because we're expecting another one. But $169 for the current model, it's not bad. And the Series 10 starts at $299 right now. There are some sales going on. So if you're listening to this episode at any point and you're like, I just want to get a new watch now and I don't care about any of the things you guys are talking about, then get one of those, because that's pretty significant. You're getting an incredible smartwatch for, like, I don't know. I just feel like that's super cheap for what it can do. Am I off base here?
No, I agree. I would still hold off and wait, because if Apple does bring out the SE at a lower price point, then it probably is still worth going for that, given that the current SE is quite old. But I think the point still stands that Apple Watch is one of those things where even if you don't get the latest generation, they're still really useful. I mean, even that first generation SE, it's not supported by the latest version of Watch OS, but you can still close your rings. You still get sleep tracking. You still got your notifications. They're pretty long-lasting devices. The battery is the main thing that seems to go. A small lithium-ion battery does not last forever, as we know from other devices like AirPods. But other than that, I mean, they're pretty hard-wearing.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Series 11. So as we discussed, all three watches are going to get the new Series 11 chip, or the S11 chip. And it's still based on that A16. But here's where we're going to start getting into potentially some new features. What's the deal with blood pressure monitoring? Is that something that we're still thinking might happen, or are we still kind of unsure? Last I checked, it was kind of it is on the horizon and it is going to come, but we don't know if it's this year or next year.
That is pretty much still stands. We haven't heard anything that suggests this feature is now locked in. But the way that Apple wants to implement this feature would suggest to me that it's not unlikely. So you won't get a specific blood pressure reading. It will work a little bit like hypertension detection, where in the background, you will get not hypertension detection, I mean sleep apnea detection, where you get a notification and it just pops up and lets you know that you may have this, so you should speak to your doctor. Hypertension detection will probably be the same as that. So it's not like you're going to be able to go to an app like you do to record your heart rate or an ECG or blood oxygen. You will just have to be aware that it's just monitoring the background, which is good enough for most people.
I mean, it's if you have high blood pressure, this isn't the thing for you. But if you're somebody who maybe is on the border and you don't, and you're worried about that creeping up into your life and becoming a thing, well, then you might get an early reading and kind of an indication from your watch, like you said, at some point when that actually does get detected. So it's good, kind of catches things at an early stage so that you know that it's happening. I mean, I would love for it to be a reading type thing. Also, I know this was kind of not something that we were going to talk about, but like, whatever happened to the whole like temperature thing? There was either temperature sensing coming from the watch, or I guess most recently AirPods. Is that still something that we can expect? Or,
well, there is temperature sensing on the Apple Watch.
I guess I was thinking more of a reading. Like the AirPods one, was that supposed to be more of like you get an actual reading type thing?
I don't know that they will ever do that because it's not accurate enough. I mean, right now you can get your temperature against a baseline on the Apple Watch.
Right. You get that overnight,
which is a really useful health indicator. I found that really useful since I got my Apple Watch Series 8. And it's a pretty good indication of if you're ill, because if your temperature is consistent for months and then suddenly it's going up overnight, it suggests that you've got a fever and that something's wrong. It's actually probably a better health indicator than something like blood oxygen. But I don't know that we will get something that this is what your current temperature actually is right now, as opposed to during the night, a baseline was detected at this level over the previous months and now is higher or lower than that baseline.
I guess when it was rumored to come for the AirPods, I just assumed that's what it would be, because it's not like people are wearing their AirPods all the time overnight. So like it really can't establish a baseline. So I assumed that would be something like putting it in your ear. Like, how the doctors back in the day, they would put it in your ear and get a temperature. Like there'd be some sort of reading that way, but it's been a while since I've heard anything on it. So I kind of assumed.
I'd hope that would be the case. And maybe that is the direction that these things will go in. I'd like to think if we imagine the Apple Watch 10 years from now, you will be able to get specific systolic and diastolic readings for your blood pressure live on your wrist. The same goes for temperature detection. I'd like to think that all of these things could be way more specific and go way further. Blood glucose detection would be another one. Blood alcohol detection. But considering we actually only seem to get one of these features maybe every 3 years, I think we're talking like a 10 to 20 year time frame before we actually get all of this stuff in the way that we want it.
Harley, I ain't going to be around that long, buddy. Okay, so speaking of things that happen overnight, we saw in iOS 26 code that there was a potential sleep score happening. Is Apple trying to do the whole Aura Ring thing, or like any other wearable nowadays that gives you these fancy sleep scores?
It looks like it. I mean, Apple's sleep detection is pretty good. I think it's got a lot better. A few years back, they introduced the ability to see phases of sleep, where previously you could only just see how much time was in bed versus how much time was asleep. And that's fine. I do use that. I always wear my Apple Watch for sleep monitoring, and I do find it useful to sometimes be able to take a look at that. But the way that the industry has moved is toward these sort of readiness scores and a simpler way of understanding the quality of your sleep versus just, okay, you had 7 hours, 53 minutes of sleep last night. So a new way to understand that, a new widget, seems like a pretty good way to sell a new series of watches that otherwise are a little bit thin on features.
So we're thinking this is going to be an exclusive then, huh? Even though this could very easily just be a software feature that everybody gets.
If it wasn't exclusive, it would already have been on
WatchOS
26, I imagine.
That's what I was thinking, but then I was wondering if this was just something that maybe is this going to be one of those things where like this year it's exclusive, but then next year it gets opened up to others?
Who knows? I mean, there is the possibility that they unveil it for the Series 11 and then say that it's coming to previous models. They have done that with some of the features that the Series 10 got, and then said that they were also coming to the previous year's Apple Watch Ultra. But that was different because, of course, that was staying in the lineup. But there is precedent for that kind of thing, I suppose.
There's really not a lot going on besides this. I mean, 5G RedCap. So basically, we get some better capabilities. You know, it's no longer going to be an LTE model; it'll be a 5G model, right? So we'll get some good marketing there. Whether or not you're noticing any actual differences in your, I don't even have cellular data on my watch, but when I did, I don't know that I ever noticed anything crazy. It was more so just to be able to go out and not have to take my phone with me and do other things like get phone calls and send messages and listen to music, stream music. I'm curious if there's a lot of you out there that listen to this show and wonder and use cellular data on your phone a lot or on your watch a lot, and kind of live without your phone as much as humanly possible and just rely on your watch for most of those cases until you need your phone for something else. Have you ever done that kind of I know there's a lot of challenges online for people doing that and stuff, replacing their phone with their watch for 30 days or something crazy. Is that something you could not do? You're looking at me like I'm insane.
I'm not too interested in doing that. I've actually never turned cellular on my Apple Watch ever.
Ever.
I can't justify the extra cost on my contract because
It's
always
so cheap
have my
these
phone
days,
with
though.
me.
It's like $5 a month now.
Yeah, but even then,
Sure.
I always have my phone with me. Always. Yeah. So maybe once a year when my phone is dead and I want to get a message, or I want to listen to some music with my AirPods, which both happen to be fully charged, but my phone is dead, then I would be glad that I had paid that amount of money. But it's just never seemed necessary because I don't think I'm that kind of customer. I've always got my phone with me.
Well, this is a good transition into this Ultra 3, and one of the specific features is satellite messaging, satellite connectivity. So we have this on our phones. This is now the first time that it could potentially be on an Apple Watch. Would you still need to have a cellular plan, though, as one of those, like, you need this, but when that goes out and you don't have Wi-Fi? Like, I don't foresee that being the case, right? I guess I've never really tried that on my phone.
It doesn't work with networks.
Right.
It doesn't work with cellular networks. This is operated separately with Apple's satellite partner. And that's why Apple did discuss there being a separate subscription for these features on iPhone.
This is true.
But it's just never really mentioned it again.
Yeah, because people got
that was the idea.
Well, I just didn't know if this was like a scam into kind of making you have you have to at least try to have some sort of outside connection to the world before we let you use the satellite. Otherwise, everybody would just try to use that all the time. Am I wrong? Like, I would feel like that would be the case.
But that's why Apple's restricted when you can use it. You can only use it if you don't have any other connection.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, Apple's way of making you get stepping up to a 5G, I guess in this case, watch, and then saying, well, you need to at least have an active line. And then if the line doesn't have, data or connectivity at that point, because you're in a place where it's a dead zone and we know there's no Wi-Fi, only then can you unlock the ability to use the satellite. But if I decided I'm just not paying for that and I'm not in a place where there's Wi-Fi, okay, well, now can I connect it? Because I would just feel like there'd be a lot of congestion then. Maybe I could be wrong. Not many people are doing this all the time, but yeah, I mean, that is an option now for people. If that does in fact happen, you'll be able to send messages using the satellite from your watch. If you're ever stuck out there on a hike or something and you don't have a plan, that's a possibility. Is that something that's going to sway you into a new Ultra 3?
I can't say it is, but I do think that is a worthwhile feature on the Apple Watch Ultra. It fits in with the theme of that product being for extreme situations. And if you're out in the wilderness somewhere and you've got your Apple Watch with you, you're out hiking, it would provide peace of mind that you know that you can get help if you need it. Maybe you have an older iPhone that doesn't have that feature. Maybe your iPhone is dead, but your Apple Watch is still going. So yeah, I think it makes sense.
Okay, sorry, I got a little distracted. I'm looking behind you, and you have this table. It's a new setup for those who are not watching but have seen before. Hartley usually has his luxurious, living room in his background. Now we're looking at, is that a kitchen table?
It's my dining table.
Your dining room table. My apologies. Well, does it not look like, from my perspective, your dining room table placemats are MacBooks? Because that's what it looks like. Are those MacBooks?
I wish they were MacBooks, but I don't know how much of a good placemat that would be.
Is that a placemat? They just look thick.
They're marble. They're marble placemats.
Oh, well, excuse me. Congratulations on all of your success. My God. Marble placemats. All right. So anyways, back to the Ultra 3. We're obviously going to get all the same stuff as you would on the Series 11. Although last year, it didn't really get an update. This is going to be the first update in a couple of years. But last year, the Series 10, right, got the new wide-angle OLED. So
that's right.
And the LTPO3. So it gave you a faster refresh rate for always on. Basically, there was that one indication that Apple showed was like, oh, well, you can see the seconds tick when always on is on, but like you don't have to have your watch display. Like, okay, cool. We didn't get that on the Apple Watch Series 2 refresh, which was just a new color option. So now we're going to get it on the 3.
Yes. So this is just as a result of Apple not updating the Apple Watch last year.
Yeah.
So it will have a better display. I think what's more interesting is the fact that it's rumored to get a larger display.
Yeah, barely. Slightly.
One thing that always bothered me about the Apple Watch Ultra was how big those bezels are. It was more pronounced before they moved to the Series 10. Mm-hmm. But as someone who has an Apple Watch Series 8 and spent a good amount of time with this series of Apple Watches that have very, very thin bezels, the Ultra just seems huge by comparison. Yeah. So I think that if they're re-engineering that display technology to add wide-angle OLED and this faster refresh rate for always-on mode, and also it probably will be brighter as well, it makes sense to kind of push those bezels out a bit more in that same casing size.
So over the course of the last year, I have been rotating between the Series 10 and the Ultra 2. And the one thing I will say is that display upgrade where you can definitely see more off axis, different angles. The display was brighter and it did make a difference. Even in my review video when I was just going through to kind of prepare for this next batch of watches, I've noticed that looking at that shot where I showcased that, it really is noticeable. So it should never be behind in terms of these features to the lesser version with the standard model, and then the Ultra kind of not having some of that. So I'm glad that it'll all be like pointed in the right direction. I don't know if this larger display, this doesn't really seem like a casing increase, more so than just bezel reduction, basically, right? Yeah,
pretty much. So the Apple Watch in general, and we'll discuss this in a second, but the Apple Watch in general has followed a 3-year cycle for its designs, and the Ultra seems to be the same as that. So the series, the original Apple Watch, the Series 1, which didn't really count because that was like a spin-off of the Series 2. So you've got the original Apple Watch, the Series 2 and the Series 3 were all the same casing. The 4, 5, and 6 were the same casing. And then the 7, 8, 9 are the same casing. And it looks like the 10 and the 11 are going to be the same casing. So the same for the Apple Watch Ultra, the first, the second, and the third, all being the same pretty much.
Well, like you just hinted towards, this is going to be a pretty interesting future for the Apple Watch, as next year, as I hinted at the beginning, there's been some new details uncovered in leaked code. Again, our favorite thing to get information from. We have discovered, or someone, I think it was Macworld, and then we confirmed it, but Touch ID on an Apple Watch. Initially I did the whole like, what? Why do we need that? And then I gave it some more thought, and I guess I'm still struggling a little bit, but like if it could be used for authenticating other things like my Mac, maybe you don't have a Touch ID keyboard on your Mac. I don't know. What is this going to be used for? Like, I get that, like, I don't know. I enter in my password maybe once a day, twice a day, tops. That's what is this going to be used for?
I think that Apple sees it as a convenience feature. So when Touch ID was added to the iPhone, plenty of people said, but I can just enter my passcode. I'm used to entering my passcode hundreds of times a day. So why would I, like, it doesn't matter. But with the Apple Watch, obviously it's a device that you put your passcode in a lot less, just once a day.
Significantly less. Yeah.
But I mean, there's still an argument to say that that could be made more convenient. And also more secure, because the Apple Watch is not the most secure Apple device, because where the display is very small, chances are you probably don't have a super long password. And that device can also be used to unlock your iPhone. It can be used to unlock your Mac. And of course, you have Apple Pay ready to go on there without any need for authentication, because it assumes that once it's on your wrist, if it doesn't come off your wrist, then it must be the same person. But I think that there is room to make that a more secure experience. So when you go to enable Apple Pay on your Apple Watch and bring up the card you want to use, if that is automatically scanning your fingerprint, then that is going to be a more secure way of going about that transaction. I don't think anyone's going to rush out to buy the Apple Watch because of this. But if we're looking at this as a way of making the device better, I think that's completely reasonable.
So that's what I'm kind of like, I can maybe listen to this whole thing if there's more of an integration with other devices and other, features that need authentication where it makes sense. But I'm still like, if it's just for unlocking your Apple Watch, that is completely useless, because again, maybe once a day is when you need to do it. Maybe if you're taking your watch off a lot, I guess, for those of you out there, I'm not trying to overlook you, but I just feel like most of the comments I saw on this whole thing, people were kind of like, I have no idea why we're getting this. But you know how you used to use the watch to or you can still do it to authenticate passwords and stuff on your Mac? Like, that makes more sense, because it was a kind of like a double tap. It was a little awkward. If I just had to rest my finger on the digital crown, for example, I think that's pretty cool.
And there must be more to it. There must be something that we're missing here about use cases that have not yet been thought about. But ultimately, the Mac every Mac, if you include the ability to have a keyboard with the Mac Studio and Mac Pro, has biometric authentication. Every iPad has biometric authentication, even the entry-level model, and every MacBook has biometric authentication. Obviously, every iPhone has for over a decade now. So the Apple Watch is an outlier in not having that. So even though it is not an essential feature, if we want to make the Apple Watch a better product with more features, and it does make it slightly more secure, then I don't think that's anything to complain about. We often do the opposite and complain that a new generation doesn't have enough features.
Me? Complain about anything? Come on, man. I don't do that. We don't spend tons of time complaining about colors on this show. Never. Speaking of, that's going to be soon. New colors.
Yeah.
We need new colors for the Apple Watch, too. I'm just saying. It's getting a little boring. The SE should have been the one, like we talked about, where it got fun colors. You know?
And just, I don't know, some new finishes and ways of presenting the watch. I feel like that's all got quite lost over the past decade since the Apple Watch has been available. Initially, it was presented as a much more fashion-oriented product with these high-quality bands, and you choose between the Apple Watch Sport, the Apple Watch with the stainless steel casing, or you had the Apple Watch Edition. But now it's just kind of like almost all of them have an aluminium casing, and they're silver, and you probably get like a sport band with it. And okay, there's some polished titanium ones over there if you want them. But I think something's been lost about making it a nice timepiece.
Got a question. So a couple other rumors for 2026 is that there's, quote, a significant redesign. Does that mean, and this is my yearly check-in, I think, on wanting a circular watch? Because the Pixel Watch 4 came out yesterday, and it's just my reminder that that looks so good and that we should absolutely have one. We should have that option. I'm still, every day I'm salty about it.
I would like to see it, but I don't think Apple's ever going to do it.
The same conversation we've had every time.
Yep. And who knows what this redesign will be, right? It might be squared off edges. That rumor from years ago gets revived.
John Prosser's right after all.
What can they do with it? Like the Apple Watch Ultra is an attempt at a different design. But what can they do with the...
You can go circular.
Well, yeah, they can do that. I mean, they could make it more rounded. They could definitely like increase the corner radius and make it rounder. That might be interesting. But
I don't know.
I don't know. It feels like the Apple Watch has kind of backed itself into a design corner, but it looks like next year's Apple Watch is going to break this tradition of these 3-year cycles. And the indication in the code for this was that internally, Apple considers multiple Apple Watch generations to be the same generation. So the Apple Watch Series 9 was known as the Watch 7 inside Apple. The Apple Watch Series 10 is also the Watch 7. Oh, no, sorry. It's the Watch 7 is the Apple Watch Series 10, and the Apple Watch Series 11 is also the Watch 7. They both have the same design, the same display, pretty much the same chip. But it looks like the Series 12 is going to be considered the Watch 8. So a completely new Apple Watch from the ground up. And crucially, it will also have a new chip. So the Apple Watch also moves its chips on a 3-year cycle, and they're based on iPhone chips. So when Apple introduces the new S11 in a few weeks, make no mistake, Apple is just scratching out 10 and it's just writing 11 in some Sharpie on there. It's not different. Unlike what they do with the A series or M series chips, where these are fundamentally different, the S series chips are not. So
way to just make a huge buzzkill for everybody that was looking forward to upgrading this year.
I mean, if you're upgrading from an older Apple Watch, it'll still be great. I've got a Series 8.
Sure.
And
it's time.
it probably is time for me to look at getting a new one. Whether I will or not, or I'll hold off for one more year, given these rumors, I don't know. But again, it kind of makes sense, because how much performance do you need from your Apple Watch? Like, do you need an annual performance bump for your Apple Watch? I don't think you do. And so Apple instead makes some little optimizations to other elements in the chip. So, for example, last year it just miniaturized the chip. It made it appropriate for the Apple Watch Series 10's smaller casing, but it's just the same chip in every way. It's got the same CPU, it's the same fabrication technology, and it will be the same again this year. So maybe next year's chip will be based on the A18 or maybe even the A19. The A19 would be great. The A20 chip technology would be even better if that can be in the pipeline. Would be a great showcase for the new chip technology that's coming down the road. But usually it uses something a little bit older. So between Touch ID, new health features, a new design,
maybe don't get ahead of yourself.
There's always something new for health every year. So
what was
there'll
this
be
year?
Something for health.
Sleep apnea. Sleep apnea. I forgot.
Yeah. So there's always something.
But it's all, yeah.
And
what was last year?
It's something.
What was last year?
I don't remember.
Removing blood oxygen.
Yeah.
Hold on. So, you don't remember because it didn't happen. Siri, you can go ahead. I'll interrupt with if you were right or wrong.
So there are a lot of features packaged up here in this device for next year. And I think it will make a pretty compelling upgrade for a lot of people. But I do think that maybe Apple should slow it down a little bit on the Apple Watch upgrades. I really don't know that we need a new one every year. I think the Apple Watch Ultra has proven, with no new one last year, that we really miss nothing. Apple could have said, oh, here's the Apple Watch Ultra 3. It's got the S10 chip. It's got wide-angle OLED. It's got the faster refresh rate. And that would have been it.
That's what you're going to get this year.
And that's what we're going to get this year. But there'll be slightly more this year.
Well, let us know in the comments if you're super excited to get a new Apple Watch after this riveting conversation.
I think that it's just the same thing that the Apple Watch has suffered with year after year, that Apple understands about the iPad or the Mac, particularly the iPad. Apple tends to not update the iPad annually. Apple is generally happy to leave an iPad maybe 18 months without an update, unless it's just updating the chip. But bigger changes, it will usually wait about 18 months. The Apple Watch doesn't need an annual chip update because you're not running high-performance apps on that. So I would be absolutely fine with a new Apple Watch every 2 years even. And I actually think that if those upgrades stacked up, like if maybe there was no Series 10 and we were looking at this new device for this year, and it included everything from last year, sleep apnea, it included the redesigned speaker, the new casing, the new displays, as well as everything that we are expecting with 5G RedCap, whatever else this new one is getting, blood. Good job. Pressure detection. It would add up a little bit more.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. All right. Well, that's pretty much everything that's on the horizon for this year. And then some of the stuff that we've heard for next year. Obviously, the Touch ID is the most intriguing thing there, and then the redesign. But we'd love to hear from you guys. Let us know if you are planning to upgrade, or maybe we unfortunately convinced you into waiting until next year.
I'm going to feel so guilty if that watch.
I'm still excited, especially if it does get hypertension or something. I don't know. It'll be nice to see what they have. But yeah, let us know in the comments, and we'll catch everybody in next week's episode.